Hello, everybody. Hello. I think that's all I got to say. Here I am. Let's have a listen to the music that you have been making. Words. Oh my god, we still got Kaidia drums. I just want to hear them again real quick before we move on. I can't wait to hear what she does with those. Is everything working, by the way? I don't know why I'm... Okay, everything's working. All right, cool. What a great start. I'm just a little brain dead, but that's fine. Okay, this one's called Wubs. Collab with friend. Ignore vocals. All right, I'll try to ignore the vocals. Holy fuck. I don't know if I can ignore this, though.
விளக்குகளும் மயங்கிடுதே இவ்வேளையில் மாநகரமிதும் துயில்கிறதே அணைகிறதே தூரம் பாரம் என்று தெரியாதா சொல் நேரில் காணும் இந்நாள் தானே விழா விளக்குகளும் மயங்கிடுதே வேளையில் மாநகரமிதும் துயில்கிறதே அணைகிறதே தரி தாரி தாரிரி தரி தாரிரி தரி தாரிரி தரி ராரிரி தரி தாரிரி தரி ராரிரி.
Okay, I dig this. I think that at this point in both of the build-ups, there should be more of a build-up thing happening, like a snare. I'd probably try to start like getting us excited for what's about to happen, because from here to here, there's not really a whole lot of difference. There's not a lot of like build up in energy. So I'd probably try to build that up more. Let's listen to the last drop. One thing I'd say about the top drums, like the hi-hats, is that you can see them. It actually kind of reminds me of what knock sounds like. You see like this really resonant, those little really resonant sharp peaks. I feel like they kind of poke through the mix in a slightly unpleasant way. I feel like I don't mind the pattern of them, but they just kind of sound a little too single frequency, like very like 10 or 11,000 hertz, and that's it. Now, if they were maybe layered, maybe it's okay. That frequency on its own isn't a problem. Maybe if they were layered with like another hi-hat that filled out those moments, those little transient moments with like other frequencies, it might be a little less chirpy, like Raham said. Chirpy is a good word for it. Overall, I really like the music. I like the music part of it. I like the production. I like the drops. Yeah, I really noticed that the chirpy hi-hats in that first drop. I think where it could be better is, well, it says collab with friend, ignore vocals. Are you going to replace the vocals? Not quite sure what you're going to do with the vocals, but everything up until the drop seemed to be quite low quality. So if you're collaborating with a friend, make sure that you're sharing full quality WAV files. I understand if this is just kind of like you guys messing around and stuff, but sometimes those MP3 files can find their way into the final project, which probably isn't ideal. And then I would probably say the build-ups towards the drops. Let me listen to the first one again. The first build to the first drop has a little bit more excitement in it, but it's still not that exciting. I would probably, because the drops are really good, and I was taken aback when I heard the drop, because I'm like, wow, I wasn't prepared for this. So I don't think that should be the response. I think I should be like, wow, that's even better than what I expected, but I expected greatness, you know? Right now, I was kind of like, I wonder what the drop's going to sound like. And then it hit, and I was like, oh, damn, that's better than I thought it was going to be. So managing my expectations a little bit better, especially in the second drop. Like, yes, there's a very subtle riser happening in the background underneath, but I feel like this needs more like rhythmic stuff, getting us excited, getting us ready for what's about to happen. Besides those few things, I dig this. I like this song. I don't know what the words are about. They could be about like launching babies into space, which I probably wouldn't be all for, but I'm assuming it's a wholesome song. I feel like this second drop isn't as good as the first drop. I don't know why you abandoned the idea of the first drop. I would probably, like, to me, the second drop kind of feels like it's different for the sake of being different. I would probably base your second drop off of this first drop, because it's really good. It's got a lot of good sounds. It's got lots of melody. And then start there and tweak and make it different. Add something to it or subtract something away. Make it different. But right now, the second drop just kind of sounds like a... It sounds kind of like the background track to what the drop should be. It doesn't sound like it has much like things to hold my attention. We got reverbed out vocals. We've got like the kind of super saw pad thing going. But here we have... We got like that kind of vocally sounding formant shifting... I don't know if it's a cut up vocal or a synth, but that thing is sick. I don't know why that's not in the second drop as well. Anyway, that's what I think. Cool. Let's check out Mr. Hydration. Thinking About You. Oh, nice. Wow, 2 keys. Interesting. I'm going to change the tempo of the project just because I can. There we go. Okay, so I really do like this track, but I feel like it's still suffering from what I said last week. I feel like the music part is so quiet. Like, I'm trying to see if I can turn the music stuff up. I like it at the leveling, at that leveling. Hey, then you go, girl. That's all that really matters. But I'm telling you that I think that the music is not loud enough. It sounds like the kick drum is the song and the music is there too. But if that's what you think sounds good, then it doesn't matter what I think. I'm just giving my perspective. Let's keep going. Like, I mean, like right here, we can visually see. It's not even, I don't even think it's like the high end per se. I think it's just the music itself, like the sampled kind of disco stuff. It's the same thing I said last week. To me, when most people listen to this, that's what they're going to really listen to. And then the thick bass and the drums and the side chaining and all the production is kind of there to multiply it by 10, you know? Like you're taking like a sick disco kind of thing, but you're multiplying it by 10 to get like a modern production version of it. But right now, I just feel like there's a big discrepancy between how loud the disco is and how loud the production on like the kick drum. Basically, it's like kick drum and sub bass versus the rest of the song. So I think that I would at least just try. I don't know if you already have it, but if you have all your disco stuff, if it's maybe just one sample anyway, but if it's all going into a bus, just try turning the bus up like 6 decibels and do some tweaks that you might need to in the master to make that happen or whatever, right? Or you could just take your kick drum and sub bass and turn it down 5 or 6 decibels and then master it harder to bring the overall level back up and then just see what it sounds like. Cause I really think it would sound better. That's just my opinion. I kind of feel like, okay, hold on a sec. I feel like I'm okay with the volume of the disco stuff here. Maybe it's because over here, it's mostly vocal. Yeah, I think there's elements over in this part that aren't in the first part. And I don't really have the same issues that I had at the start in this last bit of the song. I feel like this feels well balanced to me. So maybe it's yeah, I feel like this feels more filled out. That's not to say that I don't know. It might not be necessarily a mix problem. It could be a production and or just like what samples are using at what time. But I still feel just like the actual music part of the song in this in all the drops leading up to the last, or they just feel a bit muted to me. Like they're just not quite loud enough is what my first approach, but maybe bringing in some of those stabs here. Yeah. Anyway, that's what I think. I think it's groovy. Either way, I enjoyed it. Okay, let's check out Sparky. Take Me There, February 27th, 2026. That's today.
Take me there, if only to see that there's nothing left for you and me. Show me all you ever need. You can take this love to set me free. If I could fall beyond the lines, would you stay for me?
Hey, I saw somebody say something about tuning and that I inspired them, and I'm glad. I didn't get to read the whole thing, and then the messages went up, but it looked like you were making a shift light, and that is cool, and I'm glad that you're doing tuning stuff, because I like that stuff too.
When I lost my mind, would you save my life? When I lost my mind, would you save my life? Would you stay for me? Safe and sound inside your arms.
Okay, I like the idea of this DJ high pass sweep thing, but I feel like it went a little bit too hard on my ears.
Safe.
Right at the end there, I think it's accentuating the a bit too much. But I like the idea of it. I like what it's doing for the track. The automation here is just probably volume automation on the master bus to sneakily give us to sneakily pull power away as we're getting closer to the drop so that you can bring it back in. It's kind of like it's kind of like the episode of The Office where Jim was gonna keep putting like a coin in Dwight's phone like every week or something, so it kept getting heavier, and then he would one day take them all out so that he would end up hitting himself in the face with the phone. I feel like this is the mastering version of that. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I just think it's kind of funny that you're like slowly making it quieter so that you can turn it back up when the drop hits.
Would you stay for me when I lost my mind?
I feel like we just talked about that.
Lost my mind.
Okay, so the drop, the only thing I would maybe try is I would maybe pull the drums, like the kick and the main drums, the kick and the clap. I'd maybe pull them down a little bit because I feel like the bass is not filling in between the kick drums as much. Like it kind of sounds like kick like the kick is really driving it and the bass just isn't quite keeping up. Especially like if I solo the bottom end. We're mostly, I mean, we are hearing the bass. It's not there, but the kick drum is just so much, it's just so much louder. I would never ever put a volume automation after everything on the master. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say never ever anything, except launching babies into space. Although, I don't know, maybe if it's to like save the human race because the world is going to fail as a planet, so we're launching babies into space to start a new Earth somewhere, maybe I would get behind that. I don't know. It's kind of a controversial thing, I guess. Some people would look at this and be like, don't do that. That's wrong. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it's if it's doing what you want it to do and it's having the desired effect, then why not? The only thing maybe is that the track would just be getting kind of quiet here.
Would you stay for me?
It doesn't really, like, if I didn't show you this waveform and played it, I doubt you would tell me that there's automation. Like, if you didn't see this, I don't think you would be able to tell me that there's automation on the master bus. I think that it's just because you're seeing it it's kind of off-putting in a way. I don't know. I don't really necessarily have a problem with it. There's probably other ways to do it, but anyway, okay, so yeah, I think bringing the kick and the clap down a bit, maybe 3 dB, and then punching the master up by that amount to try and bring in between the kicks up in the mix so that the mix in the bottom end feels more sustained, not so like punch, punch, punch by the kick drum. Let's keep going.
Safe and sound inside your arms. If I lose my way into the dark, show me all you ever need, and you can take this love to set me free. If I could fall,
I'd probably take the beat out here. Like we haven't really gotten any. Yeah, there's in no part during this song so far, and I'm assuming that last bit has drums in it. There's really no part where we just kind of have like singing and music and no drums going, right? So I'd probably right here, you could just take the drums out and maybe even the bass line out and let it just be chords and singing so that we have a bit of a break from like the constant 8th note or 16th note. Interesting.
beyond the lines, would you stay for me when I lost my mind?
Yeah, I think this, if it kind of did the opposite of what it's doing on the master, or on like on the automation on the master. So if right here you drop the drums out and you just kind of like you built us up instead, and then it dropped down to If I Lost My Mind and then back up to the drop, I think that would be sick. So and you could even make this twice as long probably. I don't know what, maybe the lyrics won't allow for that, but right here, at some point in the song, you should get rid of the 16th note chug because it's just chugging the whole time. It's chug-a-lugging the whole time. And I love a good 16th note chug, but if it's chug-a-lugging the whole time, I don't get a break from the chug-a-lug. And if I get a break from the chug-a-lug, I like the chug-a-lug more when it comes back. Okay, let's now listen to the end.
When I lost my mind, would you say my mind? When I lost my mind,
I mean, I dig the track. I like the groove of it. I think it has room for one more motif, because there's no real instrumental motifs.
If I could fly, would you say, babe?
Everything is either a chord, a bass line, or some sort of syncopated 16th note thing that kind of mixes in with the bass line. I don't really hear any motif in the instrumentation. The vocal has motifs, the vocal has melodies, and that's great. But I think that you could either borrow from the vocal motif and create some synth or guitar lick or some little thing that could be repeated throughout the song, or you could have something that, what's the word I'm looking for? Complements it. So it's different, but it complements it. It could be a call and response. Da-na-na-na-na-na. Like that, you could create a response to that could be played on a synth or a guitar. I think that the instrumentation has room for, and not only room, but it kind of is asking for a motif. So I would do that, and I would also try. I try breaking down at some point, and I think that this part right here, that would be a perfect opportunity to have this big atmospheric thing. Father, did you see Zomboy released on Monster Cat? No, I live under a rock and I don't know anything about anything, except the stuff that you guys send me. But thanks for letting me know. I like Zomboy. I think I know his one song. I think I don't remember what it is. I'm not the guy to go to when you want to know relevant things about pop culture. That's not my jam. Okay, cool. Now we're gonna hear we're gonna hear Bleed. Is it gonna be a Bleed remix, or is it gonna be a Dark for? I don't. Which is it gonna be? Anyway, I'm gonna call it the Bleed remix of Girthquake. Here we go.
The scrum.
Get abnormal vision. To avoid long-term injury, seek immediate medical help for an erection lasting more than 4 hours.
Modern Cafe in Amman. Good morning, regular.
Did you know Eagletown is one of Automobile magazine? Local officials say there is widespread damage after the 6.4 magnitude quake struck early this morning.
It's a good quake.
Okay, before we go any further, I think that this the song that killed Fowler's career, that's funny. This kick drum has been deflaccidized, I think. I think that was Rayham's note on the kick drum before, was that it was a bit flaccid. It is no longer that. One thing I will say is I kind of feel like maybe the step up, like the step up in energy when we get to this point is a bit too this. I don't know if there's maybe, it could even just be an effect or something, and it doesn't have to be that gradual. It can still be quite abrupt, but just something that kind of like leads us into that, because when that kick drum hits, holy fuck. Okay, I love this song. I feel like it's effects. I feel like it's just missing some effects. I don't think this should have a huge swoosh, but it could have like a white noise for like a quarter note. Into the clap, and then it ends. Just something that designates it as like the start of the drop. You know what I mean? I wonder. Let's just see if I go like this. Just to try it. White noise. Sure. Close enough for the girls I go out with. And then I'll just do a dirty sidechain on it. Let's see what this sounds like. This might not be good. And maybe get rid of the get rid of the hi-hat on that first up. I love how the clap kind of sounds like somebody tore out a page of extra heavy paper, not that light shit, but heavy paper. They ripped it and then they recorded that sound and sent it across an AM radio. And then on the other side of the AM radio, somebody had a Shure SM58 and they recorded it with that. And then that's the clap sound. That's the original. I'm not saying it in a bad way. I'm just saying it. That's what it sounds like. I wonder what it's like if what's the tempo? Is it like where the fuck? Okay, let's put on the line. I think that's how music works. Is it on the right line though? 126. Thank you. Oh, I thought I was gonna have to figure that out. Okay. What's it like if we 252. I think just the one little I wonder maybe too. Let's try a cymbal that rings out. Just for shits. Twerk cymbals. Okay, let's try that. Okay, that sounded poopy. It's probably because it's not sidechain though. Made the white noise fade for... Fuck. Okay. Look away, FL Studio users. I'm doing bad things. I'm going to sidechain it with volume multiplication as I'm fading it out using the channel volume strip control. Oh, that's bad. Okay, you want it four quarter notes? Wait, that's not 4 quarter notes. I know how to count. And there. And... I mean, I like both of those. I think the big thing is just that the drop, it hits hard, but it kind of hits with zero fanfare. It kind of hits as though it had been going for a while. It doesn't sound like the start of the drop. It sounded, and the open hi-hat, you could even maybe get rid of for the first little, first few quarter notes or something, bring it in a bar later. I don't know. I mean, like, it works as is. I just think that some sort of splash off the top to be like, yo, this is the start. What's up, Fred? Yes, I did. I really liked it. There's also, you can always watch the feedback streams on my YouTube channel. They get saved there. I don't remember my exact feedback. I feel like I had a couple little notes, but I think that the pitched version was much better.
do we know right now? We're getting some word of injuries.
Yeah, I really like this remix. Fowler, do you have any breakdowns when you first started? I have breakdowns all the time still. What are you talking about? I remember one time my computer crashed or something, and I straight up I just walked. I walked out of my studio and just walked down the road for like 10 minutes and then turned around and came back because I was afraid that I was going to get violent towards my electronics, and that's never a good thing. So yes, I know that feeling. Yeah, I think overall, just like some more effect stuff, but not heavy-handed effect stuff. I just think it just needs a few things here and there to help designate like the start of things. And then the other thing right here. Yeah, I think that the massiveness of the kick drum that comes in here just kind of comes out of nowhere. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do get angry, but not very often and not very angry. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's sick. Also, I kind of want you to stem it out so that I can just fuck with it. Because I have a couple other ideas that I don't necessarily know how to convey with words to you. I don't even know what the ideas are. I just like, there's a couple spots where I'm like, I hear some things and I'm wondering if some things were deleted out, if those things would be more upfront in the mix and noticeable. But I wouldn't know without kind of fucking around with it. Yeah, a remix of a remix that never came out, imagine. The Fowler remix of the Bleed remix of the Fowler song. Okay, cool. Used to get angry at electronics before I was diagnosed with ADHD. At least now you can understand your anger and maybe navigate it a bit easier. You know what I did? And I was gonna tell Rayhem and Bleed this the other night, but I didn't. So I've been working on this launch video for my new product, and I wanted to I wanted to test it on my Instagram page so that I could see what it looked like when I shared it to my story, to see if it, because the aspect ratio and shit. Anyway, I went and I posted and I put close friends, and it was I had it set to just so that like my friend Will and Courtney, I think, could see it, just to like test it. Anyway, I posted it, and I realized, actually, no, it was only Will. Courtney wasn't on it. And Courtney was like, "Oh, you posted that video." And I was like, "What?" And it was almost half an hour that this video had been up, and there were like likes and comments on it. And it's not supposed to be out yet. So I deleted it. And that was the closest I've come to actually being angry. I had to get up and stand up. And like I yelled a little bit. I think I said "fuck's sake." That was the closest I've been to anger in a very long time. I felt very dumb. Why did my Release Radar show release? Oh yeah, Jello put out a remix of Release the Hounds. He put out a techno remix of Release the Hounds today. I meant to mention that when I hopped on, but I was too busy doing the world's best introduction on the stream. So you should definitely check it out though. We could actually, let me show you what it sounds like. The second drop is really good. The first drop's good too, but I think the second drop is like really good. When you open Spotify, why does it always have to install? Like, I thought I already had it installed. Fowler. Jeller. Okay. Oh my God, the H isn't uppercased. Why? Anyway, it's it's a way faster. I was trying to find. I have a Teenage Engineering Pocket Operator that's what the main drums in that song are. I can't find it. But a funny, interesting, true story was that there's a lot of adjectives. Was that it broke? It broke while we were making that song. So this song is the last thing that thing ever made. Was that song? We also used it on CPR, I think. But if I go, oh, PO12, here we go. It's like. These are all loops that I made like on the that I all made on the PO12. Computer poop apparently is silent. There, that's the one. Yeah, that's like that main main loop in Release the Hounds is this slowed down. I like that. 140. Yeah, I think the original is like fucking like 110 or something. Anyway, cool. I really like that thing. It was cool. I think Morgan gave it to me, actually. Okay, let's listen to Multifox Move On. So last week, I believe the drop was in a different key than the non-drop sections. I think that was the thing. Okay, so far, musically, we are solid. We are solid. Okay, we're all in the same. Everything is in the same key, so this is a great improvement. I still feel like the volume of the bass sound is just so much louder than everything else. I feel like this song is the bass sound, and everything else is just kind of along for the ride. So, another thing too is I feel like your sub bass is maybe not in the right octave. I can't remember what key this was in. It's not in the bad key, right? B is for bad. B stands for bad key. Oh, my keyboard isn't working today. Okay, let's just click it then. Oh, it's in C. C stands for crappy key, but it's not bad. It's just crappy. I think your sub bass is deviating from your main bass too much. It's drawing too much attention to itself, and there are certain moments where your main bass is happening, but the sub bass isn't for some reason. Like right here. So why wouldn't the sub bass go there? I think you're treating the sub bass as if it's more interesting than it needs to be. I think all it needs to do is provide the bottom fundamental frequency of what your main sound design bass is doing, and doing it in the lowest possible octave at any given point. So I would maybe just try to simplify your sub bass and have it almost sound like it's not, like, sound like it's part of the main bass. It shouldn't sound like it's its own thing. And I think some of the notes you're playing are too high. Boom. I feel like your sub bass is also playing a different note than your main bass during certain moments, like right here. I think those are two different notes. So yeah, again, my advice is the same. Try to make your sub bass just sound like part of the main bass. There's a weird note in here. Sounds like it's off by one semitone. Okay, so I'd say your sub bass is doing a slightly better job here, but at the same time, there's still cacophony. There's still too much dissonance between the sub bass and the main bass. So what I would do if I were you, and I have to do this with my songs too, is once it gets to a certain complexity, sometimes you just have to really like group all of your basses together and analyze each note that's being played and make sure that all the basses that are currently playing at the same time are playing that note. And that includes the sub bass. Now, yes, you can deviate from that if you want to in a specific way or in an intentional way, but I feel like this is just, it's getting messy because the basses are all kind of doing sort of the same thing, but not exactly the same thing in terms of notes. And when you have two basses playing two different notes, that's generally not ideal. So the good thing is you have fixed the weird key issue from last stream. So that's good. Now I would focus on getting your basses to all, if they're playing at the same time, they're playing the same note. Maybe they're playing a different octave, but they're playing the same note. That's your next goal for this. Okay, cool. Let's check out Ice Kayab Whip Remix. I'm going to be honest. Every time I say Ice Kayab, I'm always like, I'm saying this wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway. Hard to describe, but it sounds too much like MIDI to me. I feel like maybe what you're referring to is that there's kind of one sound design, kind of wubby bass sound, and it's used a lot. I think that's maybe that's the problem. That is kind of like wow, 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 wow. And it's just, there's a lot of the wow, 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 wows. But I feel like the next thing that Multifox should focus on is the sub bass and getting all the basses lined up. That sounds like a baseball term. Anyway, getting all the basses lined up, getting the sub bass action correct. Okay. Okay, this is very disturbing. I think this, going back to the launching babies into space, I feel like this is like an evil baby, like the child of a demon or something, and you're launching it into space to get rid of it. I don't know what that was. I'm still laughing because that is the type of sound that an evil baby from hell would make. So I like the guitar, like dun 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 dun. I like that part, but man, there's a lot of weird notes in there. Wow. I don't really know. I don't know what to say. There is some good stuff in here. It sounds kind of like that math metal that's kind of like people showing off their abilities. I still think that like most of the submissions that I hear from you, I feel like it's still kind of hitting the master in a too aggressive of a manner, especially when it comes to like the oh, it's the same as the original. Oh, okay, gotcha. I feel like it really comes down to mostly the drum cymbals, the crashes and stuff. I feel like and I could be wrong because I don't really necessarily know how to mix metal, but I feel like the compression on the cymbals should be done in the drum bus and should not be done in the master bus. But I feel like your drums, are hitting the master bus with such a veracity that the master bus is now responsible for not only controlling the dynamics of the drums, but also controlling the dynamics of the whole song. So I think that if anything, you might want to try compartmentalizing this destruction of dynamics. You want to destroy the dynamics of the drums in a drum bus, destroy the dynamics of the guitars in a guitar bus, and then bring them and all the other stuff, your bass and whatnot, and sound design, and then bring them into the master already pre-destroyed so that the master doesn't have to try and balance destroying the dynamics of all these things at the same time. I could be wrong, but to me, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like the master bus is getting all the drums are found through their own bus. I don't know what that means. I'm not saying you don't have a drum bus. I'm just saying that it sounds to me like the drums are still hitting the master with so much dynamics and loudness that the master is pumping too much between different unrelated instruments. It sounds like every instrument is fighting for every square millimeter of space in the mix. Kick sidechain will make it so the kick isn't being pushed so hard. How does one go about feedback on their musical? You mean getting feedback? You submit your tracks, http://discord.gg/Fowler Music. I meant going. Yeah, okay, so I'm not saying that your drums aren't going through a drum bus, and I'm also not saying that your drums aren't being compressed through the drum bus. I'm just saying that your drums are probably not being compressed enough before they hit the master, because, Cody, that doesn't work. Raham's just fucking with you. You got to type it in manually. Try exclamation Gmail. Yeah, I just, to me, yeah, to me it just seems like you gotta not hit the master so hard, and if you do, you gotta hit it in a slightly more strategic way. I don't love the evil baby being launched into space sound. Maybe if it wasn't rail to rail loud, maybe. You gotta make love to the master, not murder it. That's very well said, Fred. They're being slammed through the compressor on the drum bus, to be honest. I think that if you were like, I'm not going to tell anybody, but I'm going to make this track not as loud, I think you might end up being like, this sounds more powerful because it no longer sounds like a wall of noise. It now has a bit more of the character of each individual things, you know? I think every track that you send in, it just sounds like the master bus is hating its life. And I understand loud music, and I understand that dirty things have to happen a little bit, but I think that it's just a little too much hatred going into the master bus. And I'm hearing a lot of interaction, because when you send all of these things too hard into a single limiter, you have that one limiter reacting to all these things at the same time. So you get all this crazy pumping of gain reduction as it's trying to fight all of these things at the same time. So if you can kind of like have them fight their own battles in buses and on a track by track level, so that the master has a lot easier time, then you're no longer going to hear the interactions between the individual instruments as much. There's always going to be some interaction, because when you say like, I want to glue the mix together, you're literally saying, I want the instruments to interact with each other in the dynamic stage, or in the dynamic sense. You want the drums to affect the guitars, and you want the drums to affect the synths and the basses and stuff. But when all of these elements interact with each other aggressively, it's going to end up just being a bit of a mess, because the gain reduction, your graph of gain reduction, is just going to be like a big, like crazy mess. And that's what we're hearing. So I know it's always challenging to get things loud and not a mess, but that's part of learning how to make things loud without making them a mess. And I'm trying to say that compartmentalizing and getting things sounding good before you just absolutely smoke the limiter in the master bus is typically a good idea. Okay, let's listen to Raham's non-EDM submission, Heart of Stone. Is Raham going to profess his soft side to us now? Let's have a listen. I like this so far. I'm going to pause it for a sec because Cody sent in a Spotify link. Can you send us in something I can download and load into the into FL Studio, please? Thank you. Okay, I dig this. I think that this is on the opposite side of the last track. I think that this is not hitting things hard enough. Let's see. What if I just load this up? Sorry. Did you play the guitar and bass on this? Is that you chugging along on the guitar and bass? Nice sidestep on the question, by the way. Did you play the guitar on this? Guitar is real. Was it Stu? Yeah, I mean, like, I think that just me squashing it. And again, when I was talking about like compartmentalizing, oh, you did play the guitar, cool. When I was talking about compartmentalizing your dynamic control in that last track, that's basically what we're doing with like multi-band compression. We're letting the dynamics of the bottom end, we're stopping that from interacting as much with the dynamics of the top end by reducing the dynamics on a frequency basis. So we're grabbing all these low frequencies and we're controlling the dynamics of it down low. So only the low stuff is going to hit this limiter or compressor and affect the gain reduction. And then we're going to do it on a frequency by frequency basis. And then we're going to hit the master limiter with more integrity and more strategically, because we've already controlled the low end thumping and the high frequency clashing and the snare drum popping. We're controlling all of those dynamics individually so that we can hit this master limiter harder. But I think really what you should do is take the kick and the snare and turn it down, because everything else sounds pretty good. The crash cymbals could come up a bit, but they kind of come up when you hit the master harder anyway, even though I said we probably should control the dynamics of the drums before the master bus. But I think that if you brought your kick and snare down, you could probably, you could get way more loudness out of this with no downside. Cody, I don't know if you heard when I said that you got to send me like a file I can throw in FL Studio, not a Spotify link. I'd probably try to get like I'd probably try to play a real bass on it, because I did kind of notice here it's like bling dang 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 dang. It doesn't really sound like it's the dynamics of the, I keep saying dynamics, like that's too much of a buzzword. I feel like the velocity of the bass is like just not, it doesn't feel like it was written for the track. It's just kind of like, yes, this is the correct note being played at the correct time. Check mark, you know? It doesn't sound bad per se. Like the tone of it sounds pretty good. I like how dirty it is and stuff, but just the performance of it feels quite stiff. Maybe you could try playing with some velocity. I don't know what is it, the Rickenbacker? It's not the Rickenbacker bass. The Rickenbacker bass in contact's actually pretty good if you play with the velocities. You might be able to get away with it, but I think a proper bass being played by a proper bass player through a proper bass amp is probably the proper way to do it. It is the Rick. Okay, try the palm muted version for like this section. It's on max velocity. This one goes to 11. Yeah, I think that me cramming the dynamics out of it definitely brings the track to life a bit more. So I understand that it's kind of early on in the production of it, but yeah, I feel like you got too much. You get the kick and the snare is too loud, and that's causing you to not be able to make the track very loud because of that. So I'd maybe take all your acoustic drums and just kind of like limit them or crunch them somehow to bring those peaks down so that the cymbals come up, because the thing you can really tell is the cymbals. The cymbals don't seem like they're being affected by any sort of compression. Let's make sure that I don't have any compression on. If you listen to the cymbals, they're just kind of like plain cymbals. They sound good, but I mean, you can see how loud they are right here. You know, like that's the cymbal, right? So gluing the drums together and bringing them all up and then hitting your master bus harder is going to go a long way. And replacing, I mean, the bass, you could probably, if you fucked around with the Rickenbacker bass, you could probably get it to sound pretty good, but I don't think you'll ever beat, you'll ever beat a real bassist with a real bass, because you never know. I mean, like, even I'm assuming you can play guitar, you can play bass. It's not exactly the same, but you might find you could walk up to that note, or, you know, like a hammer on or something that you're not really going to figure out by using the Rickenbacker bass. So yeah, does Stu not have a bass? I feel like somebody must have a bass that you can get your hands on and play with your hands on the bass. Cool idea though. I really like it. Okay, this one's called Wrench. Okay, I like the weirdness of this intro, but I do feel like it's dragging on. I feel like this is quite long for the amount of information that is being presented to us. I would probably take out that bling, 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 that high frequency wheelie sound. I'd probably take that out at the start of the drop. I feel like there's too much stuff happening at the start. Yeah, I kind of agree with Raham too, is that the ranch dressing. I don't really understand what notes the sub is doing. It sounds like it's just doing what it wants. It always does. Was playing same key in different octaves. Still haven't figured it out. What do you mean? In the 808? It kind of reminds me of it sounds like Jackal, like Jackal's old stuff. I I feel like he had really slow trap kind of stuff, and then he started making super melodic, like high energy stuff. And his slow trap stuff is the stuff I like the most. And this kind of reminds me. So I feel like if you're listening to some Jackal, that would be a good reference. I think I should shave my mustache off so that together we can make a full. No, I think you should just shave your mustache back on. The production and vibe of this is cool, but melodically, I'm just confused. I'm confused. I'm confused as to like what notes are happening or what notes should be happening. So I do think you got to dig into exactly what the vocals are doing and then what the sub is doing. It was just 3 notes, but going low an octave before switching notes, like in bass lines. Let's try this. Let's put it up an octave and listen to it. Yeah, like if you listen to it an octave up, it's yeah. It's doing weird. It's doing weird thing. There's something weird going on with the bass line. I don't really. Da, 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 da. Is that a hold note? I don't. Oh, God, I wish I was better at music. One, two, three, four. So it's playing a major it's playing a major third. Sorry, I'm laughing at the bagpipes thing. So it's playing a major third on the A. Okay, so major third on the A now. And the reason why I'm putting it up an octave is because it's a lot easier to tell what notes are being played. Sometimes when I'm trying to there's actually, I think is it Suspicious where I fucked up a sub bass note and you can hear it in the song. And I would have noticed it. I'll show you how you can notice it. If you put it up an octave, all of a sudden you can tell these things, but I didn't put it up an octave. And I didn't tell the thing. And then I put out a song on Monster Cat with the wrong note in it. Oh, fuck. Okay. Stems. Thank you, Will. I will. Try. I will try. Is it Suspicious? I think it's Suspicious. Here we go. Okay, we'll just do the instrumental, because why not? And actually, Eswin pointed this out to me. It might have actually been right there. No, it's not there. Maybe it's not Suspicious. I thought it was. I guess it isn't. I'd have to ask Eswin and see. I don't remember what song it was. Anyway, I'm getting besides the point. A good practice is not to not to put your song up an octave, but to take your MIDI, and if you're ever in doubt as to if they're playing the right notes or not, put the MIDI up and listen to it, and then you can tell. Okay, we got the receipts here. You're playing D, A. So it must be the glide. Maybe the glide, that big long. No, it's not that big long glide. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you besides when we listen to the results. I was wrong. I changed it, I guess, but still your point stands. Yeah, it's just like I feel like this is you know the THX sound, the at the start of like movies and shit. Well, I don't think they've done that sound in a long time, but anyway, I feel like that's what this is. I feel like this is very close to being the right notes. But yeah, it's just there's just some dissonance happening, and the production is cool, the vibes of it are cool, but there's just some weird notes that are stopping it from hitting its full potential. So maybe just take a little look and take an audit of all the notes being played and make sure that they're doing exactly what you think they should. And again, try putting your low bass sounds up an octave to check and then put them back down. And I would be careful with the digital hacking into the the mainframe sound. It sounds like you're kind of carpet bombing your song with it, and I think it should be used sparingly as an effect and not as a main element because it's very complicated. It draws your attention, and then you also have vocal chops and it's a lot for your brain to kind of comprehend. So I would be careful with that, the digital hacking into the mainframe sound. White phosphorus track element. If it would be in the correct scale, we'll go back and fix up the instrumental. Yeah, I would try that as well. Because, like, there's certain moments, like, right there when it lands. There's certain moments where all the notes are lining up and like, cool. But this track violation and DJ Smokey. Oh. But yeah, there's just some there's some melodic and harmonic issues that I think you should address. Okay, let's check out GG. Here we go. Okay, so first of all, the kick drum, the transient on the kick drum is I don't love it. It kind of sounds like somebody hitting a window with a wrench. I almost feel like you might be better off just auditioning some different kick drums, because the problem too is I've had this problem before. If we go like this. So the kick drum, you've got like this really sharp transient that's like here. But then the thump of the kick drum is kind of doing this. So it kind of makes the kick drum sound late. I don't think that there's any automation happening on the tempo, but I think that what Rayhem is maybe hearing, because he had mentioned, if he had asked if there's automation on the tempo, but this, it kind of makes it feel like if you listen specifically to the kick drum, it kind of sounds like you're not sure where the start of the kick drum is, because you've got like the knocking sound, but then you have the thump of the kick drum, which, I mean, this blue is not really showing up. You've got like you've got a knock and a thump. Sorry, I don't know why. Okay. So if I put this to the tempo, what's the tempo? What's the tempo? 135 maybe? So check this out. If I put this to the tempo, it's 135. I turn on a metronome. That's funny. And then listen to this. If I get rid of the transient, hear how the metronome now sounds like it's happening before the kick drum, because the kick drum has that thump that's happening like, I don't know, that 30-second note after. So I would maybe just try a different kick drum. This one sounds like it was made up of numerous kick drums, and I'm not sure that they're jiving super amazingly together. I kind of like the psy, it's almost like psy trance, but not trance. It's like psy techno. I don't know what to call it, but I like the like high on mushrooms in the woods vibe. It kind of reminds me of Armin van Buuren's Shivers, kind of.
Yes, you are not to lay me down slow. Pull me in close. Yes, you are not to that sweet and low, that sweet and low. Take me down low. Yes, you are not to lay me down slow. Pull me in close. Yes, you are not to that sweet and low, that sweet and low.
I feel like this section, I like this section. I like the melodic part of it, but I feel like it needs more kind of like effects happening to keep my attention, because I'm kind of drawn to the open, or not the open hi-hat, but the hi-hat on the upbeat. I'm kind of drawn to that, and it's almost making me feel like it's a bit dragging on, like it's a bit monotonous. Because the top end isn't changing. There's no like, I'm not saying there's nothing. There is a couple effects being used there, but throughout, I just don't really feel like there's a whole lot of like interesting soundscape happening. Usually in this style of music, in a breakdown like this, you would be like you'd be creating an atmosphere. And right now there's like a very slow low pass filter opening, a hi-hat happening on the upbeat and the vocal, and there's not a lot of evolution. It doesn't feel like the track is evolving and growing as much as it should. It is a little bit, but not as much as it should.
Yes, you are not to lay me down slow.
Okay, again, the kick, I don't like the kick drum. And the other thing is, I think you need to do a sub bass. So in between the kick drum, there's really no bass. You've got like a bass, but it's not providing much low frequency information. So if I just do this, okay, and I just. What are we in? D? Okay. Whatever. I'm just going to play some D's. D's nuts. Got them. And okay. And then let's see how that fills out the track. Sorry, I need to turn them up. Try doubling it and see. Yeah, so I think that would help a lot too. If you had a dedicated sub bass to fill in between the kick drums. Hear the difference? I'll play it without my sub bass and then bring the sub bass in here. Oops, I keep, that's why. So you can see it kind of balances, and if you had a slightly better kick drum that balanced with the sub bass on the offbeat, then you would just have nice thick bass throughout the drop. Because you kind of have like a droney bass there, but it's not really providing like low frequency. You can see it in the waveform. This is your kick drum. See that low frequency wave? And then between the kick drums, there's no real low frequency wave. It's all just high frequency rest of the track. But I think you have a good basis here for this style of music. I'd maybe try to get to the melodic stuff sooner because... Now I know like for a DJ mix, it's kind of common to go for, you know, a while. But I liked when it went melodic and the vocal came in, maybe tease the vocal in the first part, you know, to tie the track together. Anyway, that's what I think. I think it's cool. I think the kick drum, it could be changed for something better. And I think you need to fill out the sub range between the kick drums. Cool. All right. This one's called Furex, I think. Incompatibility. Okay. Okay, I'm digging this. I think that you need a bit more atmosphere. If you're going to be this stripped back, there's got to be some atmosphere happening, some interesting sounds. You got to build a bit more interest in the track. It's a bit too stripped out to go 30 seconds without really a whole lot of like information besides, I mean, I like the cool snake charmer kind of melody that's happening, but I think that, yeah, I think that I think if you had some sort of cool atmospheric, it doesn't even have to be musical per se, just something to pull us in and create some intrigue. Yeah, I like the kind of industrial vibe that's happening here, but we don't have any sub bass. You're kind of doesn't have any bottom end to it. Let me solo just the sub range. All we're gonna really hear is the thumping of the kick drum. What key are we in? I wonder. Are we in the cursed key? C sharp. Yeah, C sharp you can still get bass, like sub bass. But that's the frequency we're missing. You're playing right? What you should be playing is, now, you don't necessarily have to play it on that synth. If you like the sound of that synth up an octave, you can play that synth that octave, but then you should play a sub bass down here. Is it C sharp or am I fucking crazy? Is it C? I thought it was C sharp. I might be. No, it is C sharp. Okay, cool. All right, let's keep going. So far, that's what I think that, like, up until the drop, it needs more atmosphere. It feels like it's loitering a little bit. Like I'm not quite sure where we're going. There's not enough effects and texture stuff to tell me that we're heading towards a drop. I do also think if you put it from C sharp to D sharp, you're probably going to have a lot better of a time just in every aspect, because C sharp is doable for bass music, but but D sharp is better. C sharp is pushing it for low. And the other thing too is, it's kind of nerdy, but if you're down really low and you're trying to do you're trying to do like 16th notes, those waveforms are so long that when you're cutting them up, we're not even getting more than a couple cycles per chop because the wavelength is long. If the wavelength is long and you're trying to cut it real short, we might only get 2 or 3 cycles of that. So it's hard to hear the note. You might have to just sustain that bottom octave and do the chops up top, up an octave on a different synth to give us the chug, if that makes sense. It makes sense to me. I don't know. I try to do English good. Oh, it is in C. What? That's C sharp. I don't understand. I'm clicking C sharp and it sounds correct. How is that not C sharp? Does it change? don't know what I don't know why you sent that picture. I don't know what it means. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure why you think it's C. And do I have a pitch shift? Am I playing something that I? Hold on a sec. Did I actually have a pitch shift on my on FL? Dude, oh, okay. Anyway, that's weird. Why are we in the key of C plus 50 cents? I don't know why, but either way, it's a very low key, and I think you're gonna have a hard time getting the sub to feel right in that key. That was interesting. So yeah, I feel like maybe you're going for some dissonant thing, and if you are, then you have succeeded. I'm not necessarily a fan of the in-between. I'm not sure what key this is in, and I'm just a little confused now. Sorry, I'm laughing at this image. Yeah, melodically, this is breaking my brain a little bit. I wouldn't put your oscillator, unless you're doing detuning, which usually involves one is sharp and one is flat, so that the perceived tone is in the middle, which is like the actual note you're supposed to be playing. I wouldn't fuck around and make it half between a key, because now melodically I'm just confused, and I don't think it's the way. Because, like, that part was sick, but this... Well, that part's sick, too. Which part was it? Right here? I can't get behind this melodically. I just can't. I can't do it. Because all I kind of hear is wrong notes, and I don't know how to hear that in a positive light. But I really like when it... I like this part, but that other part I don't know. It's just too wrong notey. There's too many wrong notes for me. I guess I'm not jazzy enough to appreciate it, maybe. Anyway, I would rethink your melodic approach when it comes to going between keys and whatnot, because unless you're really into that, I don't think there's too many people that are really into that. And of course you should write music for what you like. That's why I said, if you're into that, then you go, girl. But I can't listen. I could not listen to this section. I just straight up, I would not listen to that. So that's my feedback. I really do like the industrial vibe. I liked the Phrygian thing here. I liked that, but once it started to get into the weird note territory, you kind of lost me. I'm not good enough at music theory. I'm a better producer than a musician. Okay. French touch house. Okay, French touch. French is spelt wrong. That's okay. You have doubled up your kick drum sample at the start. Ooh. Okay, I like this. It's groovy, but I feel like the amount of value that I could get ended maybe here. And then now I'm just kind of waiting. We've reached a point in the song where I'm just like, I'm ready for the next part now. When's it gonna happen? Okay, if we look over, if you look at the blue line, wait, let me do this. Okay, now if you look at this line, this is the kick drum, this is the rest of the track, and there's just not really a whole lot happening in like the mid range. So the kick drum it's really loud compared to the rest of the track, and it's also it's very deep, but it doesn't really have, it's very round. It doesn't have much of a, like a transient or like any real mid-range or high end to it. It's really hard for me to pull that disco. Like, I feel like I had similar issues with the with the Turbor song, where the disco stuff is like quite low in the mix, and what we really have is like kick drum, top drums, and then the stuff that is actually music is kind of underrepresented in the mix. What's up, Matt Zui? I think I can't really read that from here. So I would probably, first of all, bring your kick drum down quite a bit, because you could bring the kick drum back up when you limit the song. So bring the kick drum down to match the volume of the disco stuff. And you also probably should get something in the mix that contributes to this kind of 400 to like 2500 hertz range. Maybe that could be like a dirty bass guitar sound playing the bass line or something, and giving that mid-range crunch, because there's nothing connecting like this high frequency stuff to this thumping low end with the sub bass. They sound like they're doing two things at the same time, but not the same thing at the same time, if that makes any sense. The next thing I would say is that you kind of need some sort of theme or motif. Everything you have right now could kind of be considered groove elements, not necessarily like a characteristic of the song. It's like everything's groovy. We got a bass line, we got the kick drum, we got the disco kind of chops, but we don't really have a melody or a hook or some sort of sound that says this is the song. Right now, this could be, it's almost like a stem cell. It could be many songs, but it's not one song. Wow, that was a fucking weird analogy. Because I'm kind of getting like it's a cool groove, but I'm getting bored of it because it's just kind of like, cool, we got a kick drum and some disco chops. Yeah, I'm not going to bother listening to the whole thing, because to me, I feel like we've heard everything that this song has to offer. What if the music backgrounds are just like, I mean, I still think it should have, it doesn't need to be crazy interesting, but right now, everything we have is just groove elements. It needs like a little hook. And that hook could still be a chop from like a sampling of something from the same disco song. Maybe it's like a vocal thing or a sax little blue-doo-doo, like it's something that's repeated, and now that's the song. And because again, this doesn't pass the hum test. How could I hum if I was like, yo, Jordan, have you ever heard the song that goes did it did it like I don't think that would pass it, as opposed to if you heard the song that's like yes, oh my god, wow, wow, like you would know what song I'm talking about. And you can't really reproduce the idea of the song with your mouth. So I think that this is a cool groove. I think it's a cool song to build onto, but right now it doesn't have much of an identity. So I feel like that's the issue. Right now, you've got a cool groove. The kick drum and sub range are too loud. The disco stuff probably it needs more mid-range added to it. Maybe another element to connect the bright sounds with the deep sounds. But the bigger problem here is that the song doesn't have much of an identity. It's just a cool groove. And that's fine if that's all it's supposed to be. But if it's supposed to be a song, then it needs some sort of theme or motif or melody or something that we can hum to our friends to see if they've ever heard it before. Okay, that's what I think. Don't get me wrong. It's a cool groove. It's a cool place to start. It's very Daft Punk. But if you listen to a Daft Punk song, I think it's a song called Daft Punk, which kind of sounds similar to that. There's not a lot to it, but there is still a theme. Like, is it actually called Daft Punk? What am I supposed to type? Daft Punk, Daft Punk? Oh, I love that song. Daft Punk is playing at my house. Around the World, yeah, but I feel like there's a song called Daft Punk. Maybe I'm not crazy. I'm just a little unwell. Is it on Homework? Oh, I think it's called Defunct. No, it's not that one, because that one's obviously got like the melody. Anyway, if you listen to these, you'll find that even they're more basic, because they do have some really like basic songs. But just because it's basic doesn't mean that it's void of a motif or a theme. There's always something there that's like, this is the identity of the song. It's not just a cool groove. It could be just a cool groove with one single thing that's so awesome that that's all the song needs. But there's always something. Okay, next up, we got Felix Archive. We haven't heard a Felix Archive song in a while, I don't think. This one's called Real.
I hope you see a person, not a crowd. I hope I find a way to stand out. What's wrong with a little sip of all this drink? I don't want to leave this place without a bang. And if you see a few dollars, better hit me up, cause I've been spending all my money sipping all these drinks. And if I ask you what about me didn't make it quick, and all these feelings I'm ignoring cause they not fun. And when the morning comes again, I hope I do wake up. I hope I do wake up. And I don't want nothing flashy, I don't want nothing flashy, I don't want nothing flashy, I don't want nothing. I just want something real.
Okay, the overall feeling of this is very cool. It's very unique. I think that you should have the clap sound. It doesn't have to be bright. Like, I understand that the track is all kind of muted and lo-fi and stuff, but I do think that the kick drum, or sorry, the clap or snare should punch through a little bit more so that we can get a bit more rhythmic information out of the track. I think that the vocals, I'm having a hard time understanding the words. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it's a pronunciation, or there seems to be like a kind of a cool hard cut on it.
You see a bird's not a crown.
I want you. I understood that.
You see a bird's not a crown. I found a way to stand out. What's wrong with a little lying when you're down? What's wrong with?
But then there's a few timing issues.
What's wrong with a little lying when you're down? What's wrong with?
Like right here.
Down. What's wrong with?
It's really like late or something.
When you're down. What's wrong with? Fake.
What's wrong sounds very late. But Ray is kind of correct. It's borderline impossible to understand. Yeah, I understand some of the words, but I would say I don't understand the majority of the words. I don't mind how it sounds, but I wish I could understand the words. And then there are some timing issues, like I said, that should be addressed as well.
Person you're proud to be out loud. You see a person, not a crown.
Like right there, that's really late too.
You see a person, not a crown. You see a person, not a crown. Someone that's a down. When you look inside that mirror, do you see that person?
I also find that like I like the melody, but it's starting to get annoying because it keeps going dun 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 dun. I like that, but it needs to switch up at some point.
Dollars better hit me up, cause I've been spending. See a bird's not a crown, bird's not a crown. One that's just always playing foul, dude.
Because like we had like a verse here that it got away from that.
Dollars better hit me up, cause I've been spending all my money, sipping all these drinks. And if I ask you what about me, then
again, like, and if I ask you, that was really late as well. So I feel like the vocal performance is the issue here. I like the melody. I like the sound of the track, and the production is cool and unique. But I don't understand a lot of the words. There's some timing issues, and that melody starts to get on my nerves after I hear it like 3 sections in a row. Yeah, okay, it's there.
Keep going until you stack up all that clout.
It's going there.
You see a person, not a crown.
It's kind of going there with the synth instead of the voice.
A person that's proud to be as I do.
It's going there as well, and then there's timing issues. So I think this is very unique sounding. I like it, but I think you gotta rethink the vocals and probably re-record them in a way that's a little bit, you enunciate. Okay, what's the difference between pronunciate and announce? What's pronounce and announce? I don't know what the difference is. If I speak, I am in big trouble. Anyway, I feel like you should put some emphasis on pronouncing the words a little clearer. And I also think you should try to get away from this enunciate. What's the difference between enunciate and pronounce? What's the difference? Don't they mean the same thing? Anyway, put an emphasis on pronouncing the words a little bit easier to understand. Make sure you hit your timing, and then figure out how to get away from this melody a little bit towards the end, because it really does start to get on. I'm not angry, but it's starting to like, I'm like no longer enjoying it because I feel like I've heard it too much and it's getting a little bit repetitive. I think the instrumental is dope. The only thing I would do is have the clap either have a layer on top of that's like a that cuts through the mix a little bit more, because it sounds like everything's kind of low passed. Pronounce has to do with saying the word core. Enunciate has to do with saying the word clearly. Oh, okay. So, okay, I think I understand. Wow, I learned something today. I always use those two terms interchangeably. word correctly. Yeah, clearly. Yeah, okay, that's cool. But that's what I think about this. I think that again, very cool. I don't want to discourage you from chasing this style because it's a very cool style. It's dark and mysterious. And I just wish I could understand the words a bit better. I wish that the timing was better. I wish that the clap came through so that rhythmically we had a bit more information to go off of that's not being like low passed. And then get away from this melody a little bit so that we don't dislike it at the end of the song. Leave us wanting more. Okay, next up, Botanica Artcore High-Tech Prog. Wow. I feel like I'm more cultural just saying that. I hope I enunciated everything properly. I don't think I enunciated correctly, though. Wow, okay. I mean, it was very nice. That zap was a bit aggressive. This is cool. What comes next? I feel like this is not the full story. I feel like this is the intro to something. I had no issues with it except that zap being a bit aggressive. Keep going. Cool. That was super easy. Okay, this one's called Ariane Shaw Renegade Horu Remix.
These hands right there. I pop 2 more sheets in my mind somewhere. Won't let my mind go there. I took too much, don't let me drive nowhere. Keep your eyes on mine. And if you want, I'll tell you lies.
I'd probably bring in some sort of element here. It can be subtle, but even just a something, because it feels like it's dragging.
I'm yours for life. And tell your friend she's next in line. Drugs real close. One more round before I overdose. And no one ever knows. She's on my mind and I'm on yours. I'm not here for games. I told you what it is, you chose to stay. Maybe you chose the pain.
I feel like the timing on the vocal kind of drifts in certain spots, like right there. The chosen line seems early or something.
Cause you don't know me, you just know my name.
Yeah, I mean, this is a sick car. Once again, a car edit song. I dig the vibes. My feedback, I think, would be careful on the timing of the vocal. To me, it does feel like it's rushed in certain lines. It's hard to tell because we don't really have any kind of rhythmic elements here. But as I'm like nodding along with the rhythm of the vocal and the bass line and stuff, there's certain lines that I'm like, oh, that kind of threw me off a little bit. Like I feel like it's rushed or something. And my other feedback is probably, I think, to bring in some more elements halfway through these non kind of beat sections, because they just kind of feel like they're not going anywhere. And then all of a sudden we get a beat. Now I don't think it needs to be like, you don't have to go crazy with it, but some rhythmic stuff, a shaker or some, whatever a shaker would be in this style of music, maybe like a band past beat or something, a crunchy lo-fi kind of drum machine beat or something underneath, more atmosphere. It's just, I just feel like we hit a spot, we hit an energy level and we hold it. Then we hit an energy level and then we hold it. Then we hit an energy level and then we hold it. Then we hit an energy level and we hold it. In each section, there's not a whole lot of evolution or growing or changing. It just kind of is doing its thing. So I don't mind it as much in the beat sections, because at least there's more stuff to listen to. But in these breakdown sections, I'm just like, it's kind of just a bass line in the vocal. I mean, like, yeah, there seems to be like a super saw pad or something as well. But I just kind of get bored. I get bored about halfway through each of the breakdown sections. I'm just kind of like waiting for the beat to come back in. So maybe put a little bit more emphasis on the second half of each of those breakdown sections to give us some more, information to sink our teeth into. The original sounds kind of like this, isn't it? I might be wrong. I don't know, but if it does, I would give them the same feedback. Okay, that's what I got. This one's called Southern Skies Police Piccadilly. Okay, 11th more jump times Miko covers Southern Skies remix version 5. That is, I feel like you could make that title more concise. Okay, here we go. Okay, first of all, you expect somebody to listen to 7 seconds of basically silence? That's never going to happen, not in this economy. If you want to do a swoosh in, make it like this. It's hard enough to get people to listen to your song, period. Especially if you have 7 seconds of basically nothing except a white noise swoosh, people gonna skip, for sure. This is cheese, isn't it? This is awfully melodic. It's got a lot of melody stuff happening. I feel like my only, besides the comment at the start of the swoosh, my only real feedback so far is that the vocals are very bright in that harsh area. Yeah, I feel like you can kind of see it. If I go back here. Yeah, I think that they're a bit too bright in that like 10K range.
そうやって確かめていた愛だならせ優しさから逃げたりしない取り繕っても追いつかないどんな線を描いても曖昧打ち消されてしまう刺激では物足りなくなる
But we will always know him as Cheese. This is really well done. This is probably the best Southern Skies song we've heard yet. Now, structure-wise, I'm not quite sure why we had a massive build and then there's just kind of nothing. I mean, like we got some kick drums for sure. But I'm not quite sure about the arrangement because I feel like you can't build us up for that long and then just give us like 32 kick drums and not really much of a drop and then that's the end of the song. It's a little confusing arrangement-wise. Severe lack of shitty MIDI piano. Yeah, I mean, like I feel like this one moves and has. I don't really get bored of the sections. I feel like I'm just gonna keep calling him Cheese for now. I feel like Cheese has done a good job with this. I think that he's made some big improvements. The start thing pisses me off though. Don't make me listen to 7 seconds of silence. I'm just kidding. It doesn't piss me off, but it should. Yeah, careful on the vocal. That kind of, I don't know, it's like 10K or something, was quite prevalent. Now, the vocal also just kind of seems like it's just going, like it's just running along with the song. I don't know if that's because I don't understand the lyrics and I can't necessarily like pick out individual parts of the song. Like Can I update my file? Which one is yours? Send it in and I'll download it again. But to me, yeah. Yeah, just send it in. I'll re-download it. He sends better composers. I don't think he sent this one in last time, did he? Anyway, I think it's good. I would careful with the vocal thing and figure out what to do with this last drop because I feel like this is a bit of a letdown after such a long build. All right, Shock Lab opening track, dubstep, zit, fucking crusty ass song. All right, this is pretty cool so far. I think that your sub bass is really loud, and I think that your snare is the wrong type of snare. Needs to be tiny, like the tiniest. I don't know if I'd go as far as what Rayhem said, but the snare is just kind of one of those like super scooped, like old school dubstep, like Vengeance sample pack dubstep snares. I think it definitely needs to be tighter. I think it needs to be a more, definitely in the plinky direction, but I don't think a tiny little plink. I don't think that's like a Jack U plink. I don't think that's the move. But if the kick had a bit more punch and less thump, so the kick is very biased towards like the fundamental frequency. It's very whoom, like a big techno kick. If it was more like it's drum and bass, so I feel like the drum and bass kicks are short and the drum and bass snares are short. And when you think about it, it makes sense because the tempo is very fast. There's a lot of kicks and snares in it, right? So if those kicks were all really long and they're happening very often, then you're just going to have a lot of side chaining kick mess very often. So I think as the speed of the song gets faster, so the main drum sound should be tighter because they're getting closer to each other and you need more space in between the sounds. I'm not saying a plink snare is the move, but I think shorter kick and shorter snare is going to do this a lot of good. The kick, maybe the kick is fine lengthwise, but it's like it doesn't have enough punch in the top end to cut through the mix. You could you could also take the snare and just put it up 7 semitones. That'll make it brighter and shorter, you know? Like that might be the move. Just take your current snare and try tuning it up a ways and see what happens. I'm also not really hearing a motif. I know I sound like a fucking broken record, but like that down, 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 that's kind of... But most of the track is like cool sound design and production. I'm trying to pick out the theme, and I'm not picking it out. What I'm looking for is something that's not a bass or an arpeggio. That's kind of like, I mean, you can have motifs that are made out of basses. I mean, I don't know, a lot of noisy. I was thinking a lot of noisy tracks, but even a lot of noisy tracks, they might just have a little weird off time plinky sound, and like that's the song. Give me a song that you really like that's in this style of music, and let me listen to it so I can like point out the what the theme is. Like right now, that to me is the theme of the song, is the down, 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 down. Right. So, but you're not really referencing it for long periods of time. You know, like maybe amongst all of this crazy sound design, the main bass sound goes like it's referencing it, right? It's saying that, remember that thing that went I think that's the problem, is that yeah, but we go long periods and long sections without any sort of reference to it. It's there. It's not here yet. It's not there. It doesn't have to be going the whole time either. It could just be like right before that bass hits. Down, 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 down. Like I just think that you're not using it enough, because it is, you're right, that is the theme. But to find creative ways to throw back to that theme during your drops, you don't even need to use that synth. Like I said, it could just be in amongst your crazy, chaotic, like complex bass sound design. If it at some point was like like, then that would reinforce that as the theme and wouldn't allow us to kind of forget about it. And then it comes back and we're like, oh yeah, that's a thing. Now, of course, you can overuse a theme, but I feel like you are underusing the theme in this song. Like, why isn't it here? Why isn't it teased? I feel like it needs to be, this is AM6 verbatim. Sorry, AMS. I can't click links, but maybe AMPS can click it. AMP6 can click it. Yeah, I feel like it's not even a big change that's required. It's just identifying what the song is about. And right now it sounds like it's about down, 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 down. And then making sure that that is in the track in some way or another. Either that or some complementary version of it, like a column response or something. Because I just think we go too long in this track without hearing that sound again, and we kind of forget that that's the point of the sound, and we're just kind of listening to sound design and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't think it's a big change. I think it's just like identify the theme and try to make sure that each section has some little reference to it, or maybe not every single section, but more often. That's what I think. And then the notes about the drums and the sub bass, I think, is a bit too loud. Okay, cool. Let's check out Maziu. I don't know how to say that. Avril Lavigne. That's the title of the song. Okay, I like the energy of this. It's very Dance Dance Revolution. I know I make that reference a lot, but that's my age, and that's what it reminds me of. Hello, Paul. Yes, if you throw it in the next couple minutes, I'll listen to it. So... So, I mean, it's hard to tell. That's a good thing to be addicted to. I mean, it's still video games, but at least his physical health was benefited by it. Okay, so it's hard to tell. The top end sounds a bit crunchy. Some of it might be from the fact that it's a 192 kilobit per second MP3. You can see it breaking up on the spectrum over here. Breaking up on the spectrum sounds like a follow-up TV reality TV show to Love on the Spectrum. Breaking up on the spectrum. Yeah, I think that the track kind of sounds like the whole thing is going through a little bit of a distortion pedal. And you can kind of see it here, represented here. Like, okay, let's play this again. Okay, so I just took a screenshot of the frequency response. We got this loud sub bass. Great. We got lots of bass. We don't need to worry about bass. Then it quickly falls off, and this is what I think is happening. I think that this is kind of maybe the shape of the frequency response of the track. And then there's so much distortion that I think it's starting to really it boosts this harshness up. And it also kind of leaves us feeling a little disconnected in this area. There's like no man's land between the harsh / brightness and like your thick bass and kick drum. So, I mean, you know, I could try to demonstrate what it would sound like if we just kind of do the inverse of that. So maybe we go in. Oh my God. Hold on a sec. I might have been doing you dirty. I had this down a little bit. Yeah, okay. So part of that was my fault. Sorry, from the last track I had this master limiter down. Okay, let's give that another shot real quick. I'm sorry. Okay, there's still clipping happening. So it wasn't 100% my fault. I'll take 32%. Oh, I was doing you really dirty. Actually, amps... Oh my God, hold on. Let me just quickly listen to this. Okay, I think if anything, it might have actually been making the Amp 6 song better. I'm sorry, amps. It was from the Cheese song I put the mastering on, and then I fucking forgot to turn it off. I'm sorry. It is something I do a lot. I know. I'm not smart. I think my feedback still stays the same, amps. I'm sorry. Okay, let's go back to this for a sec. Now, I do think it was actually doing you favors. Let's just turn it down a bit, and then... Yeah, see, when I bypass, so I just basically did a real quick, like, try to bring down those harsh frequencies a bit. And I do feel like I can listen to it louder, with less ear pain when I do that. Yeah, so I'd probably ease off on. Well, I'm not quite sure what you're doing in your master. It sounds like there's a lot of efforts being made to get everything as loud as possible, and that's typically where things start to get harsh and kind of clashy. So whatever you're doing to try to make it loud, maybe just I don't know what your workflow is like, but I know that sometimes I have this problem in many areas of my life, not just music, and it's something I haven't come up with a good name for it yet, but it's like vestigial assumptions. I have it with when I design my electronics. I'll design around a problem and then solve that problem with a weird solution, and then I'll go months designing other stuff, and then that solution that I created fucked something up, but I never went back to think about whether I should still do it or not. So I came up with solution A that was kind of like a compromise because of some other problem, and then I solved that other problem, but I never went back to fix this weird solution that I came up with. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I come across this all the time in my electronics design. I'll go a month and then I'll look back and I'm like, why the fuck am I doing this thing? And I'm like, oh, it's because I had that issue that I solved a different way, but I forgot to go back and unsolve it the incorrect way. So when I produce music, I do something similar. Maybe I mix it a certain way into a master, like a ozone patch that I make or something, and I do a bunch of maybe I pull a lot of mid-range out because of something wrong in the mix, and then I forget that I have pulled a bunch of mid-range out in the master, and I'm like resolving that problem in the mix, forgetting that I've done some fucky shit in the master. So sometimes it's a good idea to turn off your master bus and recheck that you haven't kind of created a problem, solved it in a way that created a new problem that you solved again. Like, I don't know if this is the problem. I haven't come up with a good way of articulating this idea, but it's something that I come across a lot because I usually come up with weird ways of solving things. And sometimes those aren't the best way of doing things, but I forget that I did it like that and then I move on. So maybe what I'm trying to tell you is turn off your master bus and just take a quick evaluation of where your mix is at. And maybe just try to forget for a second about making things loud. Try to make it sound good and just forget all about loudness. And then try to solve the problem of loudness after you solve. Because you might have tried to solve the problem of loudness 2 months ago and then put 2 months of work into the track into this master bus that you've done some dirty shit. You know, like you said something about a clipper or whatever, and you've just assumed that that's fine. You haven't really thought about whether you should change that or not. You haven't challenged your previous assumption. So maybe do that. I'm going to listen to the rest though. Oh, that's probably a welcome break from the high end. Okay, so I think that this arpeggio song, that kind of like early 2000s sound, I think it's a bit muddy. I feel like it's very heavy in like this down here. Yeah, like right here. And then it trails off in the top end. So I'd maybe dip a little bit of that frequency out and maybe like brighten it up, not a lot, but a little bit. your kick drum is kind of not cutting through here. Let me... Yeah, I feel like your kick drum doesn't have a whole lot of like bottom end oomph to it. But like it's kind of part of the sound. Like that like 909 punchy kick is kind of part of that sound. I feel like we lost too much stereo width here or something. Something feels... That's why I was checking out the imager thing in Ozone. Oh my god, where is it? Ozone. If I look at the image... I like the sound of that bass, but and I'm not saying that you should widen that bass, but maybe there could be an additional bass that's playing along with it with a little bit of dirt, and it has some width to it. Because when it gets to this section, I just kind of feel like it collapses a little bit too much, like it's too like congested in the center of the stereo field. But yeah, I mean, like, I think this is a cool track. I definitely could lose a couple pounds on Dance Dance Revolution machine at the movie theater to it. Next time, send it in as a 320 kilobit, because there also probably is some high-end frequency crap that's happening because of the 192. Naturally... A common occurrence with the mix, push too hard, you lose stereo with naturally. Interesting. I don't quite understand that. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but I don't understand why that would happen. But I think that bass sound is just like... I don't think that the bass sound really has any stereo width to it. I think that that's the problem. Okay, cool. Let's check out Pure, and then we're going to check out one last one after that. Here is the updated version of Pure. Yes, unfortunately, it is too late. But next week, every Friday. Okay, this sounds like you're influenced by BT. This sounds like the song "Emergency" by BT or something. Not in a bad way. No, I'm not saying that you're like you don't have your own sound or anything, but it sounds like it's been inspired by the song "Emergency" by BT. I think it's called "Emergency." The Emergency, sorry. Why is that waveform not touching the edges? How dare you not make it super loud? I'm hearing what I think is a loop being looped. Yeah, right here. And there as well. So it is samples, so you got me there. I mean, like, sure. If I were you, what I would try to do is if you love this sample, I'm assuming the piano, is it the piano that's the loop, or is it all loops? I feel like there's like, okay, so if you want to do that to get some inspiration, that's fine. And using loops is not inherently evil or wrong. But if the main section of your song is made up of melodic loops, then that starts to blur the lines between who, like, did you make the song or did the person who made the loop make the song? So what I would do if I were you is, if you want to sketch out some ideas with melodic loops like that, then that's fine. But then go and replace them with your own version of that. And it doesn't even have to be note for note, and you might come up with something that's better than what you have here. So using notes to come up with, using loops and stuff to come up with inspiration and ideas is very similar to listening to your favorite artists and using those as inspiration and to try to help you come up with ideas. But at the end of the day, you need to, like, if it's all loops, it's not Lego, you know. You have to go back and you have to replace it with something that's you, or you need to mangle it in a way. You're not mangling it in a way to avoid legal repercussions, because I can almost guarantee you that would never happen in this situation. But you're mangling it in a way that you're hopefully going to find something new. You're going to add some new value to the universe, as opposed to taking loops that already exist and then putting them together. You could argue that you're putting them together in a unique way. You're taking a loop from here and you're taking a loop from here, and maybe these two loops have never been put together before. You put them together, you get something new. But to me, it's still not, I don't think that that's enough. Especially if you're going to use them and I can hear when the loop starts and stops. I mean, that's definitely not enough. So taking them, cutting them into little individual pieces, moving stuff around, pitching things up and down, reversing things. There's all kinds of ways, low passing it and distorting it, and then high passing it and putting a flanger on it, and then sending it into OTT and turning it way up. And then, you know, like, these are all viable ways of using loops in a creatively legitimate way. But just using the loops themselves is not going to really get you too far, because there's nothing stopping anybody else from taking those same loops and then putting them together and saying that's their song, right? So what I would do if I were you personally is not even cut up the loops or anything. I would try to understand, try to learn on piano or in the MIDI roll what the notes are. Play it. You could actually, if you have Melodyne, I'm not sure if you do, but you can actually Melodyne the audio. Oh, well, I guess you'd need the polyphonic one. You can Melodyne it and then convert it to MIDI. Common scripts used in a copyright, though. That's what I was thinking of doing. I'm not suggesting that you figure out the exact notes so that you can just reproduce it on a different synth. I'm just saying, if you do that, you'll start to pick up on the patterns and the shapes of the chords, and why does this resolve into that sound, that the intervals, and I'm talking more about using it as a learning experience, because the end goal for any musician should be that they can just make music with an instrument and no loops or whatever, you know, like to just pull up a synth and program in some MIDI notes with that should be the goal, because that's really creation, you know. Sure, I use top drum loops and weird shaker loops and, you know, interesting percussive stuff and whatnot, but I think that when it comes to loops, you got to use them sparingly and in interesting ways. Like, for example, figure out what those bass notes are, and then maybe try changing one and see what it does, or try changing two and see what it does, or shift it up. And you know what I mean? It's just, if your project looks like it's just a bunch of loops put together, you got to ask yourself, what is the goal here? What are we trying to do? How are we measuring success? Are we successfully piecing together other people's music? Is that success? You know, like, you got to kind of think about what your goal as a musician is. Again, using loops is not inherently bad, but piecing together the main parts of your songs off of something that somebody else made, it blurs the line. But it would honestly be like it would be a good exercise to take each of these loops and do your best to recreate them. You know, do your best to try to recreate them exactly, because the stuff you learn in that process is that's the real value, not what you come up with, not the resulting audio. The stuff you learn in reproducing it. Because when you think about it, when I got my first guitar when I was like 12 or 13 years old, I'm not writing songs. I'm trying to play Smoke on the Water. I'm trying to recreate something that somebody already wrote. But the shit that I've learned in doing that is what I still use today. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, and sometimes I do that too. I hear a song, I really like it. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna load that song up, get the drum pattern, and then like try to fucking recreate that weird bass sound, and I fail horribly, but I fail into something that's completely me and nothing to do with the original song. The mix is fine, but I mean, like, the track is a gentle, soft house. The mix is fine. The master, like, it's all okay, but it's kind of not a good measure of you as a mixing engineer, because the sounds probably all sounded pretty good to begin with. You didn't have to solve probably too many issues besides just like getting the levels correct. I think I could be wrong. There's nothing wrong there. I think the bigger message here is to try and wean yourself off of using loops, you know? There's a lot that went into it. Okay, well, I mean, it sounds good. It sounds good besides the fact that I can tell that it's a bunch of loops. And I'm not trying to shit on your mix or anything like that. I think that I genuinely think that it sounds good. But yeah, wean yourself off the loops. Okay, last one of the day. Miscellaneous Jungle Big Bud X7. This kind of reminds me of, hold on. Do you know this song? Anyway, that could be a very good reference for this track. I mean, it's obviously it's very different, but like the vibe of it is kind of the same. This is also kind of Gran Turismo, like pick your car. This note is kind of inaudibly low. Like what note is that? The note of 0? I'm trying to formulate my thought on the drums. They're I don't mind them. I like the ride. I think the only thing that I'm a little bit iffy on is the kick. The kick is like the kick almost sounds like too like I'm in a jam band kick. Yeah, it might be a vestigial assumption. Yeah, I think it's the transient on the kick. Now, I think Rayham is maybe talking about something different than what I'm talking about. I'm more so talking about the sound of the kick. It sounds like when we used to play in bands, we would take like a loonie, which is a dollar coin in Canada, and we would tape it to the hammer, and then we put a playing card. We tape a playing card to the skin to try to get like more of a noticeable like a transient, and it reminds me of those days. But I'm like it cuts it like from a utilitarian point of view. It cuts through the mix. I can hear the transient. I'm just not sure if I love the sound of the transient. So it's kind of like the transient is kind of successfully transienting through the mix, but I'm a little torn on whether I like the sound of it or not. Yeah, maybe it's too transienty. Maybe that sharpness maybe it's the only sharp element in the track. Everything else kind of has a bit of a dusty vibe, and then the kick drum has this like snappy, straight up and down frequency spectrum, like snap. You know what I mean? Like instantaneous transient. Maybe that's what's throwing me off, is that everything else in the mix, the kick kind of doesn't fit the other sounds. Yeah, let's do this. Let's take this and do a high pass. I can't quite technically understand it. It might just be a matter of like the snare that's from the same kit though. Yeah. I think what you might do is just try some different kicks. I don't think that the kick, like, there's a reason why I'm kind of torn on it. I'm not saying it's for sure objectively the wrong kick for the song. I just think you could probably do better. But I think that's what it is. I think that the kick the transient of the kick stands apart from the rest of the song in a weird way. It's like very resonant-y. Maybe I don't know if you have some EQ on it to try and boost that up. It kind of sounds like it's artificially being boosted or something, like a 5K spike or something in the 3,000 to 5,000 hertz range, like a very narrow like spike on it or something to try and artificially boost the transient of the kick drum. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, I mean, like, you could just try, again, this could be one of those, like, previous assumption things. Maybe you were trying to solve a problem, and then you did a bunch of work to the track, and that problem that you solved, the solution to that problem is now the problem. And that's basically what, that was what I was trying to convey earlier. So maybe it's just a matter of going and getting rid of the solution that, that you may have given the kick drum. I mean, overall, I love the track. It's a groovy track. I think the kick just kind of sticks out in a weird way. I think that might be my only real qualm with the song. Yeah, I think that's it. Other than that, I think it's doing what it's trying to do correctly. So good job. Okay, that's it for today. 8:15. I always manage to stream for almost exactly 3 hours, which is very interesting. Like almost exactly 3 hours every single time. Another interesting thing that I realized recently is that I wake up every single morning without any alarm clock, nothing, at 5 a.m. within plus or minus 5 minutes. I wake up, I look at my phone, it's 4:58. I wake up, I look at my phone, it's 5:03. Like, always within plus or minus 5 minutes, 5 a.m. I don't get up at 5 a.m., but I always wake up at 5 a.m. And for a while, I was like, what is causing this? This is not normal. I don't have an alarm set. I don't understand why. I could understand if it was like 4 a.m. one night and like 5:30 the next night or whatever. Like I wake up early morning, but I wake up almost precisely at 5 a.m. every single day. And I think I figured out what it was. I drink a lot of water, and I drink a lot of water right up until the point that I go to sleep. Now, right before I go to sleep, I pee. But I'm also usually drinking a can of bubbly, like sparkling water when I go to bed. And I finish that can. And I think it takes 5 hours for that can of water to go through my body and fill my bladder to the point where my body says, we have a problem, and wakes me up. I think it just takes 5 hours. I always do the same thing every day. I eat the same shit. I drink the same water. I drink the same water at the same time. So I guess it's kind of not surprising that I wake up almost exactly at 5 a.m. because I'm laying probably in the same position with the same amount of water in my body. Anyway, I don't know why I sound like I'm frustrated. I'm not, but it's just interesting because when I look at my phone, I almost can't believe it. I'm almost like, there's no way, again, I am plus or minus 5 minutes from 5 o'clock. It just doesn't make sense. It's annoying, and I think it's me getting old. Anyway, I love you. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye.